So my name is Gabe. I'm with API Nation, and we're going to talk about the kvCORE and Google Contact Sync. Just to give you a little bit of background, or actually before we get started, sync sessions are not webinars. I'm sure you guys, with all the working from home and all the craziness, and just normal real estate business is to go to a lot of webinars. We used to do webinars, but we found that we weren't able to interact and get all the questions answered. We'd have 40, 50, 60 people all on one call, and they all had very educated questions that they wanted answered, and we couldn't get to them all. So instead, we started doing sync sessions a couple times a week so that we can keep these numbers kind of down and then just get everybody all the information they needed. And it's been great. We've had agents who hop into these sync sessions, they learn everything they need to know. And also they talk with other agents while they're in there, and they learn things about, oh, I didn't know you were using that for marketing, or what's that email tool you were asking about? I'm looking for a new email tool. So we found it's been really a great collaboration for us and for the agents who come. So that's what's happening. All that to say, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to unmute yourself. Just throw it out there. If you are in a place where you can't talk, you can throw it in the chat. I'm keeping an eye on that, and I'll answer it there. A little bit of background on API Nation. We have one goal. We're looking to connect the world's applications. You might think, applications, I mean, how many do I really have, and do they really need to be connected? And then you grab your mobile phone, your iPhone, your Android phone, pop open that home screen, and you will see 12 at least, but probably 20, 40, 60 apps that you use every day. You open them up, you add information, you copy information, you paste information, you need them to do things for you. And if you are using a ton of apps, you know that each app takes a little bit more time to manage. If you're posting on Facebook and Instagram, if you don't have some kind of automation set up, it's an extra few minutes every day to post on Facebook, go to Instagram, post on there, move the video to YouTube, post on there, and then get that information also emailed out to all of your leads and clients. We would prefer that you just post it, and then the automation posts it everywhere else, and the email goes out, and you can keep on doing what you want to do. So that's what we're looking to do when we talk about connecting the world's applications. We have a few different principles. 1 + 1 = 3. That's this idea that you can take one app, add a second app. Now you have 2 apps, and you can keep adding apps, a third app, fourth app. Now you have 4 apps. You're probably 4 times as productive. But if you connect the apps, 1 app, 2 app, and then connect them sort of like these gears are showing, you'll actually see an exponential increase in productivity because they're connected. Much like employees, if you had 2 employees, but they don't talk to each other, you're going to be more productive, sure. But once you remove that barrier and those 2 employees can work and talk to each other and share information, you as a team are going to be huge more productive. We think your time is valuable. That's really one of the reasons we're doing this. We want you to be able to reinvest those minutes and hours you save every week into profit increasing activities. Or we also have agents who want that time saved so they can get a little bit better work-life balance. They don't want to work 70 hours. They prefer to turn on a few of these integrations, save themselves 10, 15 hours, and go home and see their family. So that we think is huge, and we are all about seeing how we can save you time that way. The last thing is the just work button. Similar to, we think your time is valuable, and so we don't want you to have to spend hours, days trying to get these integrations to work. We sat down before we offered them to everybody. We sat down with agents and brokers. We said, here's what we're thinking. We think this information from move from here to here, is that correct for a real estate agent? Is that what a real estate agent would want? And most of the time they said, that's exactly what I want. And also I want this, this, and this. And so we went ahead and built that. Every so often we'll get one that says, that doesn't make any sense for a real estate agent. And in that case, we go back to the drawing board and we bring it back. All that is so that when you turn on these integrations, you don't have to play with a bunch of knobs and switches and filters and all this stuff. It's set up to just work for a real estate agent. That's what we're looking to do. So you'll see once we turn this thing on exactly what that looks like, that just work button. Any questions so far? All right, and like I said, feel free, just unmute yourself if you got a question. So the kvCORE and Google Contact Sync. Agents and brokers will turn this on because they want their contacts always available. Your iPhone or your Android phone is probably always on you. And if you sync kvCORE to Google Contacts, that means all those contacts from kvCORE are going to be always on you, always right on your phone, in your phone book, up to date. So if you turn this on, that's what you're going to get. Another reason people will turn this on is because it's a complete backup of all those contacts you have in kvCORE, just in case you lose access or you decide to go somewhere else. You'll know that all your contacts are already backed up on your phone in a separate app, so that you can move on to another brokerage, you can move to another office, and you're not going to be leaving any of those contacts behind. If you're a broker or an admin, a lot of times people will turn this on to speed up the onboarding, because when the agents arrive in the office, they need all those contact information for the other agents, you know, the agent roster, the vendor list, so they know who to call for different things. And by connecting kvCORE to Google Contacts, it's just going to push all those agents and all those vendors onto their phone. They can set it up so to push all the leads onto their phone, but if you're just onboarding, that's an easy way to do it. And then it'll also, all the Google products allow you to share easily with collaborators. So if you have anybody else in your office or outside your office that you want to share contacts with, you can easily just make them, you can delegate access in Google Contacts, and then they can hop in there and look at your contacts. They can edit them if you want, but it's a nice, simple way to share those contacts rather than giving somebody your kvCORE username and password, and then they go in there and hopefully they do what you want, but also you got to keep your fingers crossed they're not going to mess up your drip campaigns or text somebody or just delete everything. So a lot of people would prefer to just, let's just give you access to my Google Contacts. It's a little bit safer. So that is why people turn this on. We are going to talk about the 4 tips to manage contacts. So just 4 things that we suggest once you turn this on, or as you turn this on, so that you can really be more effective keeping track of your contacts and have kind of a neater database. Any questions so far about why somebody turns on this kvCORE Google Contacts? All right, great. Let's do this. 4 tips to better manage contacts. First one is choose a home. Second is automate. That's where we come in. 3 is use labels, and 4 is squash duplicates. So first, we're going to talk about choosing a home. And this is kind of a philosophical idea. And this is what you need to decide when you are setting up your automations and your integrations for all your apps. Basically, you need one app to act as your main hub of information. By that, I mean you need one central point of truth, the one app you can go to that you will always update the contact information in that app. You will always make sure that stuff is correct, make sure that stuff is fresh, because how automations work is kind of it's kind of a trickle down system. If I choose kvCORE as my home, as my main point of truth, I put all my information in kvCORE, and then that information informs all the other apps what is true. I could do the same thing with Google Contacts, and a lot of agents do. They'll make Google Contacts their central point of truth because they're so often on their phone, and it's just easier to keep the phone updated. And then Google Contacts informs kvCORE, MailChimp, Google Sheets, everybody else about exactly what is true. But it's important to choose a home early on. That way, when you set up these automations, you can make sure kvCORE is overriding Google Contacts if that is what you prefer, or it's not overriding Google Contacts if Google Contacts is your central point of truth. So that is the first step. Just choose that home, that hub, that main source of information that all the other apps are going to look to. In this example, we're going to use kvCORE as our hub. Next is automate. So we want to make sure that these are connected using API Nation, so that all the contacts you add to kvCORE are sent to Google Contacts, and contacts you want sent to kvCORE from Google Contacts also go there. So I'm going to show you how to set that up. Here I am in kvCORE. I'm going to go over here to the marketplace. And the marketplace is a great place to look for ways to boost your productivity. There's a ton of different options in here that can help you save some time in different ways. A lot of these are from the kvCORE team, you know, smart number add-on, property boost, but there is also stuff like Thanks.io, which allows you to send out handwritten cards to people. There's stuff like our MailChimp integration, which allows you to send out beautiful email newsletters to the people you choose from your kvCORE database. Or you can just click through the API Nation tile, which we're going to do right now, to set up that Google Contacts sync. There's some general information about API Nation. I'm going to click Add the kvCORE, and it's going to take me out here to API Nation. I can see all the syncs available through API Nation. These are all ways to save time. I'm going to click on Google Contacts so we can set that one up. And this is how you set it up. Super easy. I'm going to type in my kvCORE username. So this is how I normally sign into the kvCORE platform. And the kvCORE password. And I'll click Connect kvCORE. It connects kvCORE to API Nation. Once kvCORE is connected to API Nation, I need to connect Google Contacts. So it looks like I have a few different accounts already connected to my API Nation account. If you haven't connected one yet, just click this button and choose any of the Google accounts you have available. I have a professional Google account here, which is the one I want to connect. If you only have one, that's great. We can do that, but I'm going to go with my professional and hit allow. This allows us to manage those contacts for you. And now you're going to see this is it. This is where that just work button comes in. This is all you have to consider before launching this thing and then never worrying about managing your contacts between these two apps again. So the first thing to consider is, do you want a two-way sync? Do you want kvCORE telling Google Contacts and Google Contacts also adding information to kvCORE? Most of the agents and brokers I talk to do. They do want two ways. They want these in lockstep so that they don't have to worry about one app having information that the other app doesn't have. If, however, you are not a heavy, I'm never going to put anything into Google Contacts, so I'm only going to ever add leads into kvCORE, you can do that. You do one way, I'm only going to have kvCORE tell Google Contacts any new leads, or vice versa. I'm only ever going to add leads to my phone, and I want those leads to go into kvCORE. So either of those two ways works. I'm going to show you how to do the two-way sync because that is the most popular. So we're going to leave that there. The options for this sync, sending contacts from kvCORE, there's this option to sync all contacts on first run. If I do that, it's going to take everybody who's currently in my kvCORE. Let's take a look. So everybody who's in here, they're all going to get added to my Google Contacts. If it sees somebody in my Google Contacts who's also in here, it's just going to update that information. It'll match it up and say, oh, it looks like Steve Jensen is already in my Google Contacts. I'll just fill in some blank information. If I uncheck this box, then only any new contacts that I add to kvCORE or contacts that I modify from today going forward will be added to Google Contacts. So it's just a choice of, do you want it to catch up to date? Do I want this sync to, take everything I have in kvCORE and get me up to date in Google Contacts? Or do I just want to sync them from today going forward? The reason you would want to only do it from today going forward is if, for example, your kvCORE is a mess. Maybe you have not had time to keep track of stuff and you have a ton of contacts in there you don't want in your Google Contacts. So in that case, just uncheck the box. And then as you go through and clean up your kvCORE, or as you go through and add new leads to kvCORE, those will go over to Google Contacts. But the thousands of leads that still need to be cleaned up out of kvCORE, those will not go into Google Contacts. So that's the reason you would do it. Most agents, they want everybody having kvCORE, they want that all added to Google Contacts so that it's all on hand. You can also filter by type. For example, the types in kvCORE are buyer, seller, renter, vendor, and agent. You can do all of them. Or like I said earlier, if you're onboarding an agent, you can just say, I want them to have the vendors and the agents. That way, that information is synced to their phone. They have that agent roster. They have the vendors we've worked with in the past. And they can set up a separate sync if they want to get the leads and the contacts. But that's one way to do it. I'm going to go with all. That way, everybody in kvCORE is sent. You can also filter by source. This is less common, I think, unless you are specifically using source in in kvCORE, which is this column here. Unless you're using this in kind of a neat way, it's probably not something you're going to need to do. I would just leave that as all. So now we're going to look at what Google Contacts is sending. Similar thing, you can send everybody from Google Contacts. Or if you uncheck this box, you can only send contacts added today and modified going forward to the future. I'm going to sync everybody. And then this is a great feature that was really born out of conversations with agents about how they use Google Contacts. This is the label. So in Google Contacts, you have a bunch of different labels. You can add as many labels as you want. I got API Nation, I have admin labels, seller, listing agent. I've set up this integration in the past, and you can see it's called kvCORE people. And everybody who gets added from kvCORE, everybody who gets synced from kvCORE into Google Contacts is given and filed under this label, kvCORE people. So I can instantly see these are all the people who are currently in kvCORE. The other reason this is helpful, not just it keeping your Google Contacts neat, but also if you add a friend or somebody to your Google Contacts, let's see, let's create a contact. So let's add mom. Mom Hagstrom, it's my mom. Great. So I add mom to my Google Contacts. And I have the option here to label her kvCORE people or not. If I take this tag off, great. Now, my mom is not going to get added to kvCORE, which is probably best because I don't really need to market to my mom. I don't really need to follow up with her or anything else. And this is similar for friends or any family that you add to your Google Contacts. But if I'm adding, somebody I met from the coffee shop and I want to follow up with them later, all I have to do is add this tag. It's going to send them into kvCORE. And next time I log into kvCORE, they will be at the top of my Smart CRM as a new lead that I need to follow up with. So that is what that label is about. We encourage you to use that label just so you have a little bit more control over who from Google Contacts is getting sent into kvCORE. If you are an agent who has a Google account that you only use professionally, so all the contacts from that Google account you want in kvCORE, if that's the case, just change this to default. And that will send everybody, no matter what their label, into kvCORE. So that is also nothing. So we go sync all contacts on first run, see this label. This last piece is kind of circling back to that idea we talked about earlier about central point of truth. So if we find a match in two systems, should we overwrite the information in Google Contacts? That would be if kvCORE is your central point of truth, you want kvCORE information over Google Contact information. Or you could also say, no, don't overwrite Google Contacts. Instead, just fill in the blanks. Most people just want it to fill in the blanks. So I'm going to leave that there and hit start. So this start will fire it up. And honestly, if you kind of go back and look, the configuration we just launched is the configuration it started with. Two-way sending all the contacts, labeling them, kvCORE people, everybody's going over. So that's it. You can see the sync is set up. We now have Google Contacts going into kvCORE and kvCORE people going into Google Contacts. It's a two-way sync, one workflow for each direction. And if I ever need to pause it for whatever reason, things are going, I'm about to add a lot of people to my kvCORE and I just want to make sure everything's settled before they start getting added to my Google Contacts. All I have to do is hop in here, hit this toggle, and now it's paused. And then I can just toggle it back on. Now it's active. A great question from Ismail. Only the label kvCORE people will be added. I'll notice that Google automatically labeled your new contacts kvCORE. Can we set a different default? Yeah. If you set this integration up in that way so that It is looking at a specific contact group. Only people you label with that specific label will be added to kvCORE. When I added my mom, it automatically added this label by default. And that is actually because I was looking at the kvCORE label when I hit the add button. If I'm not looking at it, if I'm just looking at contacts, it will not add a label. So that label is gone. So that's something to be aware of as you're adding people. So if you are out at the the coffee shop and you want to add somebody right to kvCORE, just navigate to your label, hit create a contact, and it'll go ahead and slap that label on there initially. Cool. So that is automation. Now my kvCORE, my Google contacts are synced. They're going to work in lockstep, and any contact I add to one will be added to the other. Two final tips that are really going to help you out. I'm actually going to jump ahead to 4 because 4 is really cool. Squash duplicates. So you can see if you've been using kvCORE or Google Contacts for a long time, you probably have a ton of contacts, and inevitably you've probably added somebody in there a couple times on purpose or on accident, whatever. It's probably happened, and Google Contacts is a really, really nice way to manage that. So once you sync kvCORE to Google Contacts, you can see in my kvCORE people, I have 1,710 contacts, which is a good amount. And you can see a lot of them are duplicates. An easy way to get this fixed, just hit this merge and fix button. It's going to show me all the contacts that look like they might be duplicates according to Google Contacts. So you can see I have John Catcham in here twice. I have Hamnet Zhao. I have Ichabod Inspector, all people who looks like they have 2 contacts in here. And so I want to take care of them. I would first just go through these one by one and make sure these are taken care of in kvCORE, because if I merge them in Google Contacts, it will merge them, but it's not going to merge them in kvCORE. So this is just a great way to highlight them, take care of them in kvCORE, and then go ahead and merge them in Google Contacts with just by pushing this button. So that's what I would do. I would take John Catcham, look him up in here. And then I could merge him. He's already in here. Cool. So it looks like he's only in kvCORE once. That's great. I am going to go ahead and merge that guy because it looks like I've already taken care of him in kvCORE. Cool. And then I just move on to the next one until it's totally cleaned up. It can take a couple minutes, but it's a really easy way to see exactly who is duplicated. So that is the merge and fix button. The other thing, kind of bouncing back to labels. You can see here I have hot labels, buying agent, buyer, API nation. This is a great way to keep everything up, kind of organized. One option is to send people over. We said we are sending people over as kvCORE people. You can set up one workflow that sets people over as kvCORE people. Or I'm sorry, you can set up one workflow that sends people over as seller, and then a second workflow that sends people over as buyer. That way you can keep those 2 audiences separate and under different labels in Google Contacts, which makes it easier to market to them, and it makes it easier to know who they are. So they'll have that label. It also makes it easy to quickly email people. So for example, if you have all your agents listed under, listing agent or buying agent, I have 2 buying agents and, 8 listing agents here. But if I had a ton more, if I had my whole office, I could just quickly email them. I'm going to hop into Gmail, and the label actually works as a mailing list. So I can say, hey, let's send it out to my seller agents. And they are here. And then I can even also send it out to my buying agents. And I can just keep adding those labels in here, adding all those people who are there to quickly send out an email to them. So it's great if you're an admin, or if you need to quickly email the office, you can just type in, like I can type in API Nation, and you can see there's all the people who work at API Nation who are currently in my contacts. So makes it super easy. Any questions about that? All right, cool. The last thing, kind of a bonus thing I wanted to share with you is if something happens, if anything happens, and your contacts are just out of control, or let's say you do delegate access to somebody and they don't know what they're doing and they just delete everybody. So instead of panicking and saying, oh my gosh, that was my whole business, that guy just deleted it, I can't believe it. You can just hop up here to this gear settings menu in your contacts, and there's actually an undo button. You can send it back to 10 minutes ago. If they did it and they didn't tell you for a whole day, you can do it to yesterday. You can do up to any day within the past 30 days. So send it back to 30 days ago. I can just hit that, and then it's going to set my Google contacts back to 30 days ago in just a few minutes. So that's a really nice, there it is. This is where my Google contacts was 30 days ago. Right back in business. So cool. That is the last tip I have for you guys. Ishmael, I'm going to follow up with you to find out what's going on with that Google or the kvCORE side so that we can get that cleaned up for you. And does anybody else have any other questions about the kvCORE Google Contacts thing? Google does allow only a certain number of emails to be sent. When you add them as a label, you know, when you do that kind of label thing, let's send it to my sellers, it'll only add 99 email addresses. Also, you can't, you know, you couldn't spam, you couldn't send 99 and then immediately send another 99. If you do, Google will talk to you about that and you'll be pulled into the principal's office. So yeah, that is a good thing to note. But if you're only sending it to, you know, your buying agents or your selling agents or people you work with, it's a really easy way to just get all those email addresses in there quickly. Or if you use more segmented labels, so you have kvCORE only sending over people who are hot sellers or something else where it you know, it's going to be a lower audience, a more specific audience, you can do that too. You can send an email to 99 people at a time. So that email field, this to field, you can only put 99 email addresses in here and send it to them. But you could, like I said, you could theoretically send one to 99 people and then pop another 99 people into a second email and send it. But it will probably get you inevitably marked as like a spammer, and then you'll slowly stop showing up in the inbox. So it's good if you need to send it out to, you know, 40, 50, 60 person office and just send a kind of a quick update. Or like I said, if you have a niche audience in kvCORE that you've sent over under a specific label and you want to send it to them, you can do that. But other than that, and then also just something to note, if you do that, if you send it out, make sure you put all those email addresses in the BCC area. That way they can't see each other. And if somebody replies all, you know, everybody doesn't get that email. Just good practice. If you're doing a mass email, always put all the email addresses in BCC. It stands for blind carbon copy. Basically, it's a copy. They will get a copy of the email, but they won't know who else got it, which is what you want. You don't want them to know all your other contacts' email addresses. Great. Thanks so much for hanging in there with me. I hope this was helpful for you. If you have any questions, just shoot me an email. From here, I would absolutely suggest hop in the kvCORE, go to the marketplace, find the API Nation tile, and set this Google Contact sync up. And yeah, this is great. If anybody else has any other questions, just let me know, and I'll get that set up. Have a great day.